and gentlemen, we've seen a proposition case here that does present a matter, but is all the same. We see them concluding the physical education, and all their points tie back to this. We see their point about education tying back to this. We see their point about diversification tying back to this. Their entire case so far has been hung on the notion that kids will be more involved in the physical education program. And while we fundamentally disagree with this, and I'll get into why, we've shown you a case that shows multiple aspects. We've shown you a case that shows a myriad of effects, not only in education, but in the future of the child. And that's what I'm going to tackle in my speech. I'm going to show you exactly how this does not necessarily increase the amount of physical well-being of the children, and we won't see these effects brought on the side proposition suggests. There isn't necessarily a link between their resolution and kids being more physically active, something they've assumed up until now. Before I necessarily get into that, I'm going to go over exactly what we've seen by side proposition up until now. Now, their first point was this idea of education. And in there, they suggested that there is this integral link between how much kids exercise and their grades. But this is not necessarily a generalization that works for all individuals. This is a statistic that works for some. It does not take into account the differences between the individuals. Equal studies say that music helps an individual's capacity to learn. But we don't force kids to take the music program, because we understand that difference. And that needs to be a decision they need to make outside of school, not necessarily in it. Now, moreover, the very system in which they've decided creates limitations. They've made this integral link about being worthy of future education and being physically active. We'd say that the two, while are nice, are not necessarily required. The grades you receive in your physical education program should not reflect your academic career. This does not help individuals. Now, while we certainly do accept the growing gap, we do accept that we are falling behind when it comes to competing with other countries, when it comes to producing more scientists, more doctors, more lawyers. But we don't necessarily think the physical education class will change that. In fact, it'll hurt that. Zach has already gone over why exactly that takes away from the concentration of folks in that matter. So we don't see an educational gain in that regard. Moreover, it's unfair in the manner it goes about doing this. You have to understand that not everyone is born with the same physical prowess. That is an undisputable fact of genetics. And we can't hold them all to the same standards and regards, and treat them differently as a result. No thank you. Moreover, the very system they offer to measure it, the body mass index, is exceedingly subjective to each individual. We don't believe this is a fair nor effective way of dividing between individuals, and certainly, shouldn't be the deciding factor on whether they deserve future education or not. Sir. And now, we do like this idea that Mr. Lamb presented, and I'll get to in a moment, about excelling in multiple categories. We don't find it quite realistic. But first, go ahead.
People are born with different natural physical attributes, but they're also born with different natural mental attributes. Some people just aren't as smart, so why do we force kids to take English and math?
You see, you must accept the different fields. An individual who has physical prowess but not mental pursues the physical field. But what you have done here is you have linked the two. You require both for an individual to succeed. You do not allow the individual to excel in the field that they are good at and want to pursue. You require both. Now, moreover, this notion of exactly what is specialization. Now, to advance the field of science, the human body of intellect has achieved the point where we just can't learn multiple things and push the envelope of science at that point. You can't be both an expert in geology and in astrophysics and push the burden in each. It is simply not the realistic expectation of our current society. Maybe we were capable of doing so in past civilizations, but not in the current times. More so, you need to take a more detailed look at exactly what Jason's presented here when he talks about this dynamic in multiplicability. In fact, I think we all noticed it when he tried to make the link between bench pressing your body weight and having other skills in life. They aren't necessarily linked. You have to understand what skills they're necessarily teaching the children and how they apply to this idea of adapting and modifying to changing situations in life. I think that's how Jason presented it. And they haven't proven this link, and certainly haven't gone improving its effects. Which leads me to exactly our last point. This idea of, will this actually encourage individuals to become more physically active? And occur any of these effects side proposition is seen. And this is something they must integrally prove if they're to carry the day. Now, what we would agree on one fact is that we do have these kids for a very limited time. And we do only have them for 12 years. And physical education and fitness in general is something that will last a lifetime. And once they are outside of school, yes, they are on their own. But what ideas we leave them with when they leave will be the deciding factor. This resolution may help physical education in the short term, but even that's marginal, as we'll get into. But it certainly doesn't help in the long term. Joen agreed with me when I asked him if individuals build these stereotypes early in life, and if they go to affect them. He certainly agreed with this notion. What you must also understand is that individuals forced into this also build the same stereotypes against physical education about being physical. And these will affect them later in life. Now, these individuals are becoming more and more independent later in their schooling. They must understand that. And if we were to leave them with the ability to make this decision later in life, after they leave school, it must be based on their choice. They must want to. We can no longer force them, and we can no longer manipulate them. We don't believe that by force is necessarily the way to involve people in physical education or to become more physical in their lives. It certainly hasn't proven the precedent with our current society and doesn't seem to be improving. Now, what we do see is when we see lasting factors. We see lasting factors of what they've learned. They know they've been forced. We see no link to them necessarily participating in the class they've been forced into. They failed to prove this link. They failed to prove that individuals will necessarily even be involved in the classes that we force them into. And that's something they have to show. See, we don't necessarily make this link between forced into a class, participating in the class, and agreeing with it later in life. This is a more deeper societal problem, and it is not fixed in this manner. This goes deeper into the root, and if we were to fix it, we must look to other areas. These individuals find far more education in such matter at home than they do in the school. And this is a matter of choice. And you must understand that they will have to make this choice later in life. And if we are to leave them with a lasting impression, it's got to be one of consensus, it's got to be one of agreement, because we can't chase them after they've left school. Thank you.